Hi guys, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about control structures, and I want you to have an introduction besides just reading the book. So I'm going to go through it in three parts, I believe. First one I'm going to do is the if-else, and then we'll break it apart for while statements and then for for statements. This is when Java gets really confusing because it's not top-down programming, and you guys have been doing kind of scaffolded work, but this is where you're actually getting in the nitty-gritty of true programming. So the first thing that's important is that it's called control structures because Java is able to bounce around in different places. So for instance, if you use the Lego example, when you were programming it waiting for it to touch, you were controlling where it was going so in the program. So for instance, if you're waiting for it to touch, you're not necessarily going top to bottom, just do these sequences of instructions. You are saying if it touches, then do something else, or until it touches, do something else. So that's the idea. But we'll get into that later and how you actually code that and all the rest. But I just want you to have an introduction to control structures. So two things really quick: structure, programming principle. Control structures help build and manipulate objects. We'll talk about objects a little bit later. Probably that it's a little fuzzy for you right now, and that's okay. But then we'll go over it later, what actually is an object. You probably have a fuzzy idea, and the book does an okay job of it. But it's okay for things to be pretty fuzzy right now. I just want you to get the gist of control structures. Algorithms, when they talk about algorithms in the book, it's just a series of steps. So you guys have already written algorithms before. They're pretty, I would say, deliberate. They're pretty simple, meaning just do one thing after the other. So if you wrote an algorithm for making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it's very literal. You know, grab the knife, spread the peanut butter, do this. You guys get the idea. Well, the same thing in programming. You're writing algorithms, so that's no surprise, hopefully, to you guys. And then program control, that's the whole idea of this chapter, so hopefully that idea makes sense. Pseudocode is actually really important, and I don't want you to gloss over this chapter. Pseudocode is expressing yourself in a way that is not within code. So, for instance, if you're programming something and you're not quite sure how to do it, I would use a comment and write pseudocode. I think some of the programs have you actually write pseudocode for homework. I know one of them I wrote not pseudocode, but as you're going through the chapter, they'll show you some pseudocode, hopefully. Pseudocode is actually very important because it lets you say what you want to say, not necessarily in Java. For instance, pseudocode for a JOption pane would be open a window that says what the integer value is. Just write it in English, basically, and then you can translate it into Java later. So if you ever get stuck, definitely start with the pseudocode, and you can mix pseudocode in with programs, and then just send me the text file, and we'll go from there, because then I actually know what you're trying to do. So pseudocode is actually really important. Java keywords, this is a big list of Java keywords. You're not going to understand a lot of them. That's okay. Just know that you can't name variables these things. You can't use them in the program unless you're using them for their specific purpose. So you can't name an integer int, right? Because we declare ints with ints. You can't call it int. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. But just be aware of the keywords. I don't expect you to do much more than just gloss over this real fast. Next, the nitty-gritty of control structures, okay? Java has a sequence structure built in. That means it knows how to do it. And one of them is called if. I'm surprised they put if else in two different categories, but one of them is called if, okay? If else. And then switch we're not going to go over, so we'll do that in a bit. And then repetition structures we'll go over later. That's the while, do. I only expect you to know while and for loops. I'm not sure they get to for loops quite yet. But these are basically the big ones. So I'll get into if in a sec. I should probably separate the video. So this will just be an introduction, and then we'll go from there.